Welcome to American Dreams, Keys to Success, with your host, Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. We have here today with us Joe Lacob. Joe is the owner and the CEO of the Golden State Warriors. He's also a partner of Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield & Byers, a world-famous venture capital company located here in the Bay Area. Joe, welcome to today's show.
Thank you, Alan. Very glad to be here.
Now, Joe, I understand. I don't know. This is a bit of trivia here. But I understand that you didn't start off wealthy and that you're actually the first person in your family to graduate from college. But now looking back, you've had a hand of many successful companies and are currently the CEO of the Warriors. To what do you attribute your success?
Oh my, I don't know if I can attribute it to anything in particular, but hard work, very motivated to achieve and to become somebody and something. As you pointed out, I'm proud of the fact, I always point it out to my kids, I was the first person to graduate in the history of our family. Fortunately, there are going to be a lot more of those now. But it's just, it's just drive. I think when you come from nothing or not too much, you want to get somewhere. And I think it's the hardest thing sometimes I worry about with my kids is that they have, come from a pretty good environment now. And I just hope they can have the same, and I think they do, but it's hard to have the same motivations when you start out with nothing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I should point out with that, in spite of the college graduate, you come from a line of ancestors that were very entrepreneurial, immigrating from other.
Actually, that is interesting and true. My grandfather, who died when I was 5 or 6, so I don't remember him very well. But he was a little crazy. He had many, as I'm told, many businesses when he emigrated to the United States at 16 years old, I believe it was. Many businesses up and down, made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, would make money, lose money. He had a chain of laundromats. He was bombed out in Chicago by Al Capone because he didn't pay protection money, and that's a true story. He had luggage factories. He had all kinds of things. So he was very entrepreneurial, but also kind of lost it all too. So anyway, I do come from a background like that. My father was not necessarily entrepreneurial. He, in fact, when I was growing up, used to tell me all the time, he worked for the same company for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And he used to tell me all the time, every day, don't do what I'm doing. He was upset that he didn't get to go and finish college. He started and his father pulled him out. And he blames that to some extent. I don't know if it's fair or not, but he stayed with the same company. He did well. He raised a family and did well, but never made it big. And I think he always said to me, try to encourage me to be entrepreneurial and to take chances.
So with that in mind, when you set out in college, what was your major?
Well, I went to UC Irvine, the Anteaters, from Southern California. I grew up in the East Coast, and at the age of 14, moved to Southern California, went to high school, and then locally, the college, UC Irvine. Majored in biological sciences. I was very heavy biology and chemistry background. Really very science-oriented, wanted to be in medicine, wanted to be in that field, and really had every intention of doing it, except that as I went along and took a few jobs working in the morgue, which I did. It was quite interesting.
That must be interesting.
It was interesting. Worked in other hospital environments, and I realized something during that process, though did admit it to my senior year, which was I really don't think I would have been very good at it. That is being a physician. I just don't think I was cut out to do it. I think that I liked the science, but I didn't really like the idea of treating people and being involved in all that. And, became a little lost kind of at that point. Went on to a master's in public health at UCLA, and then took a job. And the job was in something early days of the HMO industry, healthcare management in Southern California. But more than that, even though it was healthcare, it was business. And I had no experience or exposure, didn't have any business classes of any sort in college. But I very quickly realized that this was for me.
So you eventually ended up into venture capital. How did that transition?
Yeah, I worked for several years in Southern California in a management situation for an emerging HMO company, healthcare company. Did very well at it, and decided I needed some management or business education. Did not have any, so I applied to business schools, and was lucky enough to get into Stanford amongst a few others, and that was the turning point, I think, in my life, getting into that school. I didn't expect to, but I did, and getting in there and going to the business school at Stanford was a tremendously eye-opening experience. Moved up here. It's, as we all know, an incredible environment, Silicon Valley and everything around it, and became exposed. Ultimately knew healthcare science sort of as well as business, and came out and worked for a company called Cetus, which doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. It's up the road from where we are now in Fremont. Mm-hmm. It's up in Emeryville, and was there for 4 years. Very entrepreneurial time in that field, the early 80s. Biotechnology was taking off in a big way. And so I was in the right place at that point, with the right time, with the right educational experience and perhaps motivations and business orientation. And wound up having a business plan to start a company. I brought it to various venture firms with a partner, and after about 4 years there, and it got funded by Kleiner Perkins.
Interesting. So it's quite a path, and I'll say this, that you really are an example of the American dream. You know, how it's been a grassroots effort of coming up through the education and learning about what it takes to be successful in running a business, but no one handed you anything. You did it all on your own. Joe, we need to take a quick break. I'd like to hold you over for some more information here and your background and getting more about the Warriors. We'll be right back after this messages.
He's the world's most trustworthy man. Tax filing deadlines are scheduled around his vacation calendar. The IRS agent who audited his client apologized.
I don't always advise people on their taxes, but when I do, I save them every penny legally possible.
GROCO CPAs and Advisors.
Come to GROCO and stay wealthy, my friend.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Joe Lacob. He's the CEO of the Golden State Warriors, also a partner with the venture firm Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield & Byers. And before the break, Joe, we're talking about your life journey, how you got to where you are today. But I like to go back and focus a little bit on your process of how you make decisions. You know, how you come to a conclusion. Do you do that more on a gut feel, or do you look at the analytical data more?
That's a very interesting question. In venture capital, in startup venture capital, which is the kind of venture capital I practice and have for 25 years, there's this debate that goes on about people. And when you're trying to hire people to come into the firm, is that person someone who could be good at analyzing things, or is that person who could be good at operating? Sort of, are you an analytic type or an operating type? How do you make decisions, And there's always been this, I think, some feeling by other people in the industry who've worked with me say, well, I'm not analytical, I'm a gut investor, I think is the term you would hear. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some truth on the outside to that. It may look that way, but actually I don't think it's really true. I think the truth is that in my case, I analyze things very deeply. I spend a lot of time. I'm very analytic, actually. But the thing is, once you decide, once you kind of have a feel for which way you should go, and by the way, in startups, it's not always obvious. There's always a lack of data. You're never going to have perfect information. That's something you have to become comfortable with. But you then have to make a decision and go. Don't look back and make it happen. It's about making it happen. It's not necessarily about, it's going to happen on its own, or somehow it's going to happen because of this influence or that influence. You have to make it happen. And so that is the part that becomes very much of almost force of will, and you have to be right. You have to set yourself in the right direction. But I think you can make things successful if, in fact, you work really hard and just keep pushing.
How do you get to those hard decisions of, when you're really looking at something that will be disruptive to a company? Either you may say, well, it's time to fold this company, or it's time to really expand, and we're going to put a lot of money into it. What type of process do you go through?
Well, there's a lot of analysis. Obviously, the traditional business analysis you would do, anyone would do. about the industry and about the competitors and about pricing and all, depending on what kind of business it is. But at some point, you just have to, you have to make a call. There's imperfect information, as I was alluding to before, and you have to try to make that investment. And you have to go with it, and you have to make it happen. You have to help the company. In the case of when you're a venture capitalist, you have to help. I have to help those companies succeed in any way I can, and that doesn't mean sitting back and just sort of watching whether it succeeds. That means helping that company, in a forceful and obvious way, where you're helping them recruit or helping them do this or helping them do that. So, making decisions is one thing, but once you make those decisions, you have to just go forward and make it happen.
So when you look at things, it's there's a lot of people, because of who you are and the track history that you created there. A lot of people are approaching you, Joe. Can you take a look at this? And it's obviously more projects than you have time available. How do you decide what projects are actually worth your time?
Well, a little bit of that is just being around an industry for a long time and recognizing what is a trend. What are the things that are going to happen? Anyone can look back and say what has happened. The question is, can you look forward? And that's not always going to be right. But sometimes if you're in and around an industry enough, you talk to enough people, and you're really a part of it, you should have, hopefully, a feel for whether something is going to change in a given industry. And then you have to go out and just hope you're right and make it happen. I've been fortunate in a number of the companies I've invested in over the years. The other thing I have done and I believe in is to be ahead of the curve, which makes it a little more dangerous because you're usually the first to do something. That's always the hardest. But if you're last, or if there's about 6 other people have done it, generally it's going to be too competitive. So my view is, try to do the analysis, pick the right people, and go make it happen, and try to be early. And if you're done the rest of that work right, maybe you hit it big.
I'm visiting here today with Joseph Lacob. He's the CEO of the Golden State Warriors and also a venture capitalist with the firm Kleiner, Perkins, Caulfield, and Byers. Joe, we need to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to dwell more on the Warriors. What's happening here? There seems to be some positive trends happening.
All my favorite topic.
All right. We'll be right back after these messages. Nothing's more important than spending time with your family.
At Greenstone Rogoff Olsen Company, we're trusted advisors to the highly successful. Our goal is to help you find the right strategy to protect your wealth for yourself and those you love.
Kids, why do I feel like I've just had an audit?
As trusted advisors to the highly successful, we'll make sure that you don't lose your shirt.
Roco helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. I'm here today with Joe Lacob. He's the CEO of the Golden State Warriors. Joe has been visiting here with us today, talking about his career path through venture capital. But what's really exciting, we want to get to this topic about the Warriors. Joe, there's a good trend I see happening now out there, but it's not happening by accident. You've designed this. Tell us, what goes into running the Warriors, and how are you building this organization?
Oh boy, that could be a long answer. Well, I'll tell you, it's a lot more work than I ever thought it would be. In the venture capital business, Alan, as you know, I probably was involved in starting 70 companies over 25 years. All kinds of companies, all kinds of situations. This is more complex than any of them. Mm-hmm. This was interesting. This is buying a $450 million business, a lot of money, a big risk for me and for my co-investors. What we didn't know was that there was going to be a lot more work to turning this around than we thought. We knew on the court there would be a lot of work. As you know, the Warriors had only made the playoffs once in 17 years when we bought the team. It's now been once in 19, unfortunately. But it was a big turnaround there. It was also a very big turnaround on the business side. And unfortunately, I had to do something which, after 6 months of not doing anything and just letting things happen, a lot of the press wanted me to make changes. And I said, no, I'm going to give everyone a chance. 6 months. I need to observe this firsthand. Can't listen to other people. I need to see it firsthand. 6 months into it, I realized all the changes that had to be made, and it took the next year to a year and a half. We're 2 years in now, and many, many changes on the business side. So that's what a lot of people don't see. They've changed almost every vice president in the organization with the exception of 2. And we've turned the coaching staff and the medical staff, pretty much everything, and have tried to create perhaps the most important thing of all and the hardest thing, to change the culture of this organization along business and basketball sides of things. Not an easy thing to do. We're not done, but we're getting there. And we've managed to, the business organization is I will frankly brag and say I think it's one of the best in sports at this point. We have hired some of the greatest people from all across the country in every one of those different aspects that help to run an organization, whether it be selling or finance or whatever. On the basketball side, we've turned over the complete roster, new coaching staff. Last year was our second year, and I'd hoped to do better, but realized halfway through that we just weren't going to get there with our core of our 2 small guards, and took a lot of heat from many fans who were Monta Ellis fans, and I understand that. But we had to do it. We had to make a change. He was our most tradable commodity. We had to get bigger. We had to get stronger. We had to get more defensive. We had to rebound better. And so here we are, just starting our 3rd season. Our big man that we traded for is still not on the court. And so we're hoping to get him back. And I think we're going to be even better. But what we have done is change the culture. Mark Jackson has instilled, regardless of what you think of his coaching strategies and all that, and some people are critical, some are positive, he has turned this thing around and made it a very tough, defensively oriented, rebounding oriented organization. We're now, I don't know today, but I think it's 4th in the league in rebounding and 4th in defensive percentage against, shooting percentage against. We were last in rebounding for the last 4 years. It's hard to do that, by the way. That's pretty bad. So we have turned this ship around, and we don't even have Bogut back. We're 8-6. We're in first place in the Pacific Division as we have this conversation this morning. And we're not satisfied, but I think we're on the right track. And we've managed to create what the image was, the vision was, that when I and Peter Gruber and our new organization came in, said, it may not be as exciting offensively. It may not be what Warrior fans are used to. And I've been a Warrior fan for 20 some odd years. And look, I like fast-paced offense too. But we first have to learn how to defend and rebound. And then we can add to that.
Now, what is your vision for the team? How do you mark your success this year?
Well, I don't, last year I got in a little trouble because I think I didn't predict playoffs, but something I said got interpreted to that I did. And Mark Jackson did. So, look, we think we're going to make the playoffs this year, and that is unequivocally our goal and has been from day one. I think the way I saw this year going is that we would try to, as a young team, very young team, half the roster is, first or second year players, but we have some veterans too. And so the goal is to stick around 500, stay in the race till about halfway through, hopefully get Bogut healthy. The rookies get, we think, a very great draft class, and we get them playing up to a level which, like Klay Thompson did halfway through, really kicked in. Fortunately, our rookies have kicked in earlier this year. So I think, we're a little bit of ahead of schedule, but I think if we could stay in it for half the season, our schedule gets a little more home-oriented, a little easier. The rookies are older, Bogut's back and healthy, really healthy, and we make a real concerted run in a very tough Western Conference for a playoff berth. And obviously, we'll go from there.
It's a remarkable trend, especially seeing yourself number 1 in the Pacific Division this early in the season, and the trend is good. Do you have any inspirational stories about the team or a player that's impacted you, how you view your life, or, it's this process of rebuilding the team?
Wow, inspirational stories. I'm so busy that I don't have a chance to reflect sometimes. This has been a lot of work, and of course, we're also working on the arena in San Francisco. It's a lot of work. It's like another whole business. So I haven't had a lot of chance to reflect, but I will say that I am very encouraged by the quality of character of player and other people, in fact, as well, that we have in the organization. Because at the end of the day, there's doing it, there's achieving the goals that we want, but there's also achieving them in the way we want to achieve them. We think it's very important to have quality individuals with character as part of this organization. What I'm most proud of is not our win-loss record yet, because it's still early days this year. I hope we're successful like we anticipate and hope. But I'm proud of the fact that we have a tremendous group of players that all get along, that are good guys, really good guys. We do not have a bad guy among them. We have purged our organization of anybody that borders on bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that our coaching staff, does things the right way. I'm proud of the fact that our business staff, are really trying to do things the right way and build something that is sustainable for the long run.
Joe, these guys, I was at the game the other night with the Timberwolves. They're a lot more physical this year. I'm watching them down in the court. It's a different team. The style of play that they put in there, the big guys, is that by design?
It is by design. It's completely by design. As I said this 2 years ago. If you go back and look at transcripts from what I said first day we took over, pretty much, we're going to change this. We are going to be big. We got to get bigger, I used to say, bigger, stronger, meaner, tougher. I mean, that was the orientation. We had to become a defensive and rebounding-oriented team first. I don't know, maybe it's because of the time I spent with the Celtics and I saw what they did, or maybe it's just an image of what I think and we think we need to do to turn this around. But that kind of mental toughness leads to physical toughness, which gets you at least to be competitive. And from there on, you do need the great players to obviously make great plays, and we'll take it from there and become a great team, hopefully.
We need to take a quick break, Joe, but I'd like to hear more about the Warriors and what's happening there. Let's have you on again for another segment. You game?
I'm game. I can talk about the Warriors as long as you want.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Protecting your family's health and welfare is a sacred trust. At Greenstein Rogoff Olsen Company, we know that sound financial planning will protect them now and in the future. We're certified public accountants with tax services for the highly successful. For your business and your family, call GrowCo.
Greenstein Rogoff Olsen Company will help you manage your financial affairs so you can focus on what's really important in life.
GrowCo, helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Joe Lacob. He's the CEO of the Golden State Warriors. And before the break, we were talking about Joe's rebuilding of the team. And Joe, obviously there's a great passion within you as you go through this process of putting a new team together from the ground up. But what do you enjoy most about your job and building this organization?
It's probably a different answer than you might expect. I think the thing about venture capital, which I loved for all those years and still do some of it, was, the fact that we were creating something. We were building companies, hiring people, giving people jobs, doing, hopefully, depending on the company, what it does, something good that was going to change the world. But the bad part about it is building a company takes a long time. It's very, for someone who's impatient, something you want it to happen faster. And it's just sometimes things don't happen fast. I've been on the boards of companies for actually over 12 years. So what I love about the Warriors and what I love about sports is you get instantaneous feedback. Every game you go to is like life and death for me. And it is hard. But I love the fact that we get feedback. We see how our plan is progressing every day. There's practices. I'm going to see today. I'm going to go over to the Warrior headquarters and see if Andrew Bogut's practicing. That's kind of a big thing for us. Thursday night, we get another game. Can we go from 8-6 to 9-6 and start to pull away a little bit and create some cushion and make, help our first half run towards the playoffs? Every day is a new day. There's I love the fact that you're constantly getting feedback in the system. And, you're selling tickets. Everything about it is real time. That's very fun for me.
You're really hands-on there, down on the floor, looking at what's going on and watching the operations. But tell me, give us something we don't know about the Warriors.
Well, I'll give you one little story that I love. I've told a few times already this week, and I'll have to edit out a few of the words. But something about the growth of an organization and how good our rookies are this year. In the huddle in Denver the other night, Jarrett Jack, a veteran, was getting beat by Ty Lawson driving through the lane repeatedly. And, he's a very quick guard and gives us fits. And when they came back to the huddle at a timeout, Ty Lawson said to Draymond Green, a rookie who was in the game, said, you got to step over. You got to stay in front of that guy. You got to get over and help on the defense, rather. You got to help. And Draymond Green, who's a rookie who could have just sort of, meekly responded or not said anything, said, you got to stay in front of your man. He used a couple of the words in there, which you can only imagine. You got to stay in front of your man. They got in an argument back and forth. And he said, well, these are NBA, Jack that is, said, these are NBA players. And you got, they're quick. And he said, well, you're an NBA player. This is Draymond Green. You're an NBA player. So I think that shows you maturity, toughness, kind of a different sort of guy that Draymond Green, and by the way, Harrison Barnes as well, and to some extent Festus, are three rookies who are all contributing. That's very special that these guys who are, Draymond Green went to college for 4 years. He was National Player of the Year. Harrison was always considered one of the best players in the country. He only played 2 years in North Carolina, but he's been training his whole life for this. These guys are a special group. And I think that little situation kind of tells you a little bit more than what you need to know.
I love watching these guys this year. They're so intense on the floor, and they're determined. You could just see it in their eyes that when they're there, it's just that they're physical and they're aggressive, and it's just, and the inside is just a different game than what it was when you first stopped on.
And they don't give up. And let's just hope this continues on, that this is really the true character of this team as the year progresses, and I think it is. They do not give up. A lot of that is Mark Jackson's personality rubbing off on this team, I believe.
I remember how many games the last couple of years were 1 to 2 points. It seems that the Timberlakes, in fact, the last 2 games that they played, they were behind until the third quarter. The fourth quarter, they pulled away.
We'd rather not be behind, of course. We do seem to have a problem in the first quarters getting going, and I don't know what the cause of that is. It could be youth. It could be a number of things, but the team is resilient.
Joe, just to wrap things up, I'd like to really thank you for being here today, give us the insight of the Warriors, and we really wish you well the remainder of the season.
Well, thank you very much, and once again, I'd like to thank all the Warrior fans for sticking with us all those years and sticking with our ownership group here for the last 2 years, as it's obviously can't happen overnight to turn these things around, but we're doing the best we can, and I think we're getting there, and I think we're going to make the Warrior fans proud.
Thanks again for joining us today here on America Dreams. Join us again next week on KDOW AM 1220.
You're listening to American Dreams with Alan Olsen on AM 1220 KDOW.